just about to head off and head towards Halifax at the View Cinema, as today I am watching the final episode of this current series of Doctor Who. See you when we get there. Just walking down now towards the bus stop to get on the bus. And I'm not going alone, I'm joined with Connor.
So, well, Series 15, it's been a really darker series than last series. So, we want to know who the big bad is.
Yes, we can't wait to find out. We're not going to spoil anything, no spoilers,
Yes.
until later on.
Wait till...
Wait till you watch
you
it.
it.
You need to watch this.
What Russell said, there'll be massive spoilers in this, so...
Yeah.
Zip.
Zip it until later. We're going to be revealing all the spoilers in our review after we've come out from that cinema later on. So we'll see you all then. Yep, we're on our way to the cinema. Connor's just in front of me trying to win the race to get there, but we're almost at the cinema, ready for the grand finale of Series 15. Not Season 2.
So here we are, folks. We are on our way
upstairs
to watch Doctor Who Series 15, episodes 8 and 9. Including 8 and 9 of this series. See you all very soon. Last time of this series. Bye.
And we have just come back after watching the grand finale of Doctor Who.
Let me just sonic you all in to get ready.
Yes, buckle your
Okay.
flipping seatbelts, peeps.
And my god,
It's been a crazy finale. Spoilers ahead, everyone's watching it.
so I'm gonna not tell you what happens at the end
Until the end of
we
this
give
video.
you. Right,
Okay, review time
so
for this entire series. And then we're going to do a comparison later on
yeah,
after this. So, Season 2 of Shoot Is Run as the
series
Doctor.
of
Or Series
15 of the, and we're going to mention of all the best bits we've seen with the 15th Doctor,
in
which
highlight.
I've actually got the figure straight away out. Right, let's get on with it.
Let's kickstart and go back in time in our TARDIS.
So the first time episode we saw
Shoot
Shoot
It was in the 60th anniversary special.
with the split by generation where we had David Tennant's 14th Doctor and they both split it up and they both had to hold hands and then they walloped out, and most of that episode we saw Shooty in his underwear.
Yes, we did.
And then that's where we went off.
That's how it kicked off.
And then
Our first full episode of Shoot It was the first Christmas special ever.
Christmas Day 2023. And this was the first episode we saw the goblins and the
Space Babies.
Space Babies was series 14, so this was the properly first episode.
Yeah.
So we enjoyed that first episode. It was more of a slightly new interest to see who he actually is. And we saw him with a juice box in the TARDIS. And he had rings. I knew he was going to do that, and he clicked his fingers to do something with the TARDIS. And then after that episode aired, we were straight on
into season 1 of Shoot Is Run.
So he's going to mention bits of this.
So, for the first Shoot It series, we had 8 episodes overall.
Including 9 if you count.
9 if you count the Christmas special.
Right?
Main series wise, it was 8.
Yeah, so through that series we saw like Space Babies and the Bogeyman was a bit...
weird monster.
Yeah.
Bit of a weird monster. We had then episode 2, Devil's Cord.
Best
episode of that series.
Yeah, and we saw them do this like sort of song, and I can't stop listening to it. It's
I mean, to be honest as well, Jinx Monsoon did really well for Maestro.
Yeah, and we hear this ha 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 ha,
which was part of the giggle.
Yeah,
which was the final episode of the season.
So then we mostly saw, and he said, the one who waits is almost here. And then straight after that, we went to episode 3. Was boom! Now the character in that episode
ended up being the companion in season 2, but we'll touch on that in a moment.
Yeah, and so that basically happened. So he had to stand on this landmine and
trying to
get off, and then Ruby had to help him most of that, and then they managed to. We saw a little Easter egg right towards the end, a snowman, because that was written by Russell T Davies. If you remember that snowman episode, go back to Matt Smith's episode. And then after that episode, we went into which was Ruby on her own 73 yards.
Worst episode in that series.
Yeah.
73 yards totally sucked.
Because it was all about going through years when Ruby was growing up, and yeah, and then it was alright.
I mean, yeah, we'll touch on a bit of 73 yards in the talk of season 2 of Shoes Are On, because it kind of links.
Yeah, and
in some of the like flashback sequences, but
yeah, and then we head into episode 6, episode 5, which was Dot and Bubba. I loved this episode.
Dot and Bubba was a pretty good episode.
Very creepy. It gave me vibes to like the Dome was a bit like if you've seen the Simpsons movie. Give me vibes to.
Or if you've seen the game show The Circle, like on Netflix, that kind of fits in with that sort of vibe as well.
Yeah, and so and then we, because if you recognise the woman who plays the one who had the bubble around, is actually played by you said a familiar character from the episode. If you've watched Blink, that's who she's related to in one of that one. And then we went to episode 7,
Rogue.
Now Rogue was a sort of like a history episode. And before we get into episode 7 and 8, we saw Susan Triad through every episode of that series. That's what I forgot to tell you all.
Yes.
So, and then this is where it got interesting in episode 8, which was Zootek.
That was like a good one.
So
out of that though, I would say Zootek's introduction was much better than his current series, but we'll touch on that in a moment.
But Zootek, I remember from 1975, during the 4th Doctor's run, he sent him back through the time vortex, and he was like a huge dog. I didn't really want the dog.
But I feel like they kind of just did that to enhance like the demonic side of Zootek, in a way.
Yeah, so I would have liked the original.
The original Zootek would have worked, but from like what I'd seen in the Unleashed of that episode, it was more to sort of enhance the view of the more demonic sort of side of it.
Yeah, and then we got episode 8 was the season finale, and Ruby found her mum, her actual mum, and then so they sent Zootek into the time vortex, and he's now dead. And then we went to Christmas Day, which was
Shooty's second Christmas special. Joy to the world.
Was imagine this, in a hotel, there's a door on the other side. To the other side. If you go to a hotel, you can't see the other side. So in this one, it goes to different portals through this one. And we saw a returning monster. But it wasn't a monster. It was the return of the Silurians. So they're made. a brief comeback, but it died. But and then,
Out of those, though, personally, that was my least favourite.
but I've seen it about 25 times, and I really loved that. And then, right after
Into that Christmas special, we head into where we currently are now with Shooty's second series,
which has been
an epic series so far.
So the start of this series, we met Belinda, and so we had these
So we got to be reintroduced to Varada, who played
Mandy Flynn.
Mandy Flynn in series 1 in the episode Boom. She
Yeah.
came back for the companion, Belinda Chandra.
And then, so through that episode, right now this is about for Mrs. Flood now. So she says in the previous Christmas special, the 2023, and she says, never seen a TARDIS before. Then we heard her saying, he waits no more. But and in the last episode, she said, the Doctor Absolute ends in terror. But in the first episode, the new series, she says, you never saw me. And that's where, and then we saw
then literally the character of Mrs. Flood appeared in every single episode, but in one episode was a huge reveal.
Yeah.
And we did kind of touch on that on this channel before.
But we're going to reveal it.
Reveal it in a
again.
moment. So, episode 1, Robot Resolution.
Was a really good,
An interesting start, I would say. Probably not the best way to start it.
Yeah, and then we saw these robots take over. It gave me vibes back to the Sarah Jane Adventures where these had.
It kind of reminded me of Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, so it reminded me a bit of that, and then we had and then they tried to get Belinda back up, but it kept on dodging off. And so then what happened, we went to episode 2, which was
Locks,
which was
being one of the best out there.
and then we heard this another god. Now we've had the Toymaker, who is the god
Toymaker in the 60th specials.
god of
returned.
games, Maestro, the god of
Maestro,
music, Zootek is
Of course,
the
the
god of death, and this one is the god of light. Now, episode 2, we saw
One of my favourites.
we saw this where the Doctor and Belinda turned into a cartoon, which was
the animated mode was crazy to look at, and there's also some slight game references that I kind of snuck into
and
from that, and I'll touch on that.
And then this is where it got interesting. They tried to tap the screw. At the end of
They came out
meeting
of the
fans.
Yeah, they met like Doctor Who fans. But this is where I'm going to mention the little references. The design of Lux was crazy and kind of reminded me of the game Cuphead. If no one's played it, it's like an RPG sort of game. So
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me of that. And also, the bit when the characters come out of the TV reminded me of the sequence when Thin Man comes out of the TV in Little Nightmares 2.
And then we mentioned, they asked them what the favourite episode, and they kept on saying, Blink, Blink. I thought, because that's through Russell's first era, because that's what he wrote back in 2007, so we knew that, well, we were going to say that. And then Mrs. Flood had this we found a Vindicator, and then she says, limited run only, it ends on May the 24th, and then this is where we end up in episode 3. So come back to 2008, there was a most scariest episode, and it had
Of course, one of Tennant's runs.
David Tennant. It was during series 4, which was one of the best season of all time, and the planet was made of diamonds, and
the diamonds had disappeared. We returned to the planet known as
Midnight, which I did not know
Expect.
that to be a sequel, but when I watched it here, I turned all the lights off, and I was so shocked how good that was.
personally one of my least favourites. Again, it wasn't my best run in that episode.
And then we got to the next episode.
Episode 4, Lucky Day.
It was a really
Interesting
episode.
Because we got the return from a classic enemy of the Doctor, Think Tank.
So, if you remember, Think Tank was a massive villain during the Fourth Doctor's very first story with the Brigadier. And that had the return of Unit, so it was good to see them back because I love Unit. They're massive part. They will be a massive part of me forever.
Yeah, and we obviously got introduced to one of the leaders of the group of Think Tank, Conrad, in this one, which ended up pretending to be one of Ruby's boyfriends.
Yeah, so then that mostly, Mrs. Flood broke him out of that
the prison, pretending to be a governor.
Yeah, and it says, it's your lucky day. And then, after that episode, we went to episode 5. Episode 5, which was
The Story and Engine.
The Story in the Engine, which gave us a good return of a former Doctor. We'll touch on that in a second. But this episode we went to Necklace, Nigeria, so it was an alright episode, not one of
the best. Again,
so it was about this creepy spider walking around
on like a web of...
Now this was the shocking return of Jo Martin, fugitive
Doctor. That was the crazy.
Because she was during the Jodie's run, and so it was good to see her back. Because I didn't really know who she was, but now I'm starting to like her, but I want to get the figure of her now. And then we went into episode 6, which was the Interstellar Song Contest.
And this is where we got the huge secret reveal of Behind Flood. We'll get on to that.
Get on to that
in just a second.
So in this episode we saw Graham Norton as a hologram, and this is where we saw a short cameo of Susan Foreman as being in
the granddaughter once again. This has been the first time Foreman has been on set since over 30 years.
Nearly since 1964. But if that's from that series, and then the 5 Doctors should made her come back. But then after that, we got the event, the Dimensions in Time, but they said that's not canon, but it actually is. But we're going to have a look at that tonight, because we want to see what that was like. Mm-hmm. And then, this is the big reveal.
The big reveal. After the entire episode itself was kind of based off of Eurovision, which was taking place in time.
So we actually saw and said, my double brains are... And it says like a time lady, and then
we got the huge reveal. The biogeneration of Mrs. Flood
is
and Archie Punjabi are becoming both the Ranis.
So she's now the Rani, and so the Rani's a 1980 villain from the 7th Doctor and the 6th and 7th Doctor's run.
Of course, originally played by a different actress, but she passed away a long time ago.
So then we get to episode 7, which was was okay, but it was all about the Doctor was
like
married.
Basically preset to what we saw in this final. Basically, it was just more of like this alternative world where the Doctor was now married to
that's never happened.
They had a daughter called Poppy, which was one of the Space Babies.
Yes,
in the Space Babies episode.
Yeah, and then we saw, if you remember, so if you look at the books, what Conrad's reading, so
they had a bit of a Harry Potter reference.
Yeah. So
if no one's seen, very, very recently they've been upgrading the front covers of some of the Harry Potter books into these sort of more AI-looking ones.
yes,
And
so,
kind of went into that sort of style
yes.
with what Conrad was reading when it came to the Doctor Who.
Yeah, because I looked earlier and I went, that cover looks familiar. And then I went, oh, Harry Potter. And then we got the big reveal who was the main bad. Mega.
Yes, the great
Made,
Omega. Made a
a
return.
And
In a way.
yeah,
We'll get to that.
and then that ended.
That ended with like the world almost like collapsing into this big wave of weirdness.
Yeah, and now the big moment
we've
we'll
all
be
waited
waiting for.
Episode 8, Reality War.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
We've just been to
We've
the
just
cinema.
seen that episode live.
In the cinema,
In
the
the cinema.
whole crowd
Went crazy and
no,
we'll reveal
you'll
why
die.
in just a moment. Spoilers ahead for this one. So it started off where the previous episode finished off with the Doctor doing this big fall from the balcony of the Bone Palace, which was the Rani's Bone
And
Palace.
then we saw the return of Nita from the Christmas special.
Joy to the World, which
Then we
she
saw-
was one of the managers of the Time Hotel.
So we saw her, and
Made a
then
return.
made a return, and then we saw
Saved it up, so.
Rose Noble return,
Saw
and
Rose
so
Noble.
and then they said, "Why are you dressed like that, Doctor?" And so the people from the unit didn't know who he was, and then he rephrased all the memories, and then this is where I was getting a bit emotional through this scene, because Mel turned up in a bike, and
Yeah.
and then
All the characters
So
like
I-
turning up to the unit tower.
I got a bit emotional because it was good to see them all reunite together. And then they took down.
They took, literally, no joke, the Doctor ended up managing to steal the Rani's scootery thing.
Yeah, and then he went like this with the
Sonic
Sonic,
screwdriver.
and then he got part of the Sonic and whizzed around London through the Big Ben everywhere.
That
Whoa!
was like a good flight scene.
Yeah, I thought it was giving me some Harry Potter vibes.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then we met Omega,
Which was a bit of a disgrace in the design. I did not want to see that at all. They should have gone with the original Omega design that they did in the classics.
Yeah.
But they kind of turned him into this weird skeleton thing. What
great.
the fuck was that? That was probably the most downfall of the episode.
Yeah, and then we got straight into where we actually then the Doctor
Then they went into like this giant
thing.
fight thing and all that stuff.
Yeah,
That was like before Omega came out.
yeah, and then they zapped with the thing, the energized thing, and
With
they took him
all the
back,
guns and stuff.
and then the other Rani disappeared. So we don't
Aisha
know.
Punjabi obviously got eaten
Yeah,
by one
so
of their weird skeletal dinosaur things.
yeah, and then straight away before we head to the TARDIS bit, but we'll mention that
In just a moment, so we've got some special guests with us.
Yes, we've got a figure under
Under the pillow, which is the reveal of who the next Doctor's going to be. Not yet.
But then we kept the refresh unit, and so now all units back to normal.
Back to normal.
And
Well,
Ruby's
pretty much. back to
Ruby's back. Ruby's given the child to a foster mum. So
normal.
that
Yes,
now,
which was one of the god of wishes.
yeah, so now that's become a good kid now, so they're gonna have to teach that one. And then straight away we head to the TARDIS. And this is
It's
where
where things go a little bit interesting. We got to see Jodie Whittaker come back to the TARDIS
this
for a big reason. So, Jodie had to gift Shooty the chance to regenerate.
So give him advice to so
To
he
use his
had
power of
to go like this,
regeneration.
and then he
So
had
you,
to-
yeah, literally, Jodie had to gift him the power to like use the power of his
Right.
regeneration to power back up the TARDIS.
and then he went flink into the TARDIS, and then
entered into like
sort
some
of,
place in front of
Yeah.
Belinda's house
and then
where we had Poppy be her daughter.
and then now here is the moment
the-
we've all been waiting for. So
Literally after the leave, we see Shooty get back on the TARDIS for his final goodbye
bye.
because we saw him regenerating to the next
Doctor
and official
Phil,
16th Doctor
is Billy
Piper
Piper.
is
She's
back.
back. So
Yes, originally Billy Piper played Rose Tyler,
back.
one of the companions, of course, for Eccleston's and part of Tennant's run.
So
as well.
she stayed, and then she made a brief return in the 60th, who played Bad Wolf, but we knew that, and so I'm glad
We get
Rose Tyler, and she's got the same blonde hair. I
Yeah.
was not expecting, so that
Yep.
ends that episode. But and then we don't know what's.
We don't know what's going to go on for the next series, which is not till 27.
2027, so I've heard they're
Because
gonna.
they're saying that it's going to take most of the rest of this year to film that series. I think they're filming 2 seasons in one.
I've heard most of that they might film.
They might film part of that series this year, and then the other parts maybe next year.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm so happy I've got my Rose Tyler back. I'm so happy.
Yes.
Yeah,
But now, as the 60th
Doctor.
So we've got to question the design of Billy's screwdriver.
Yeah. So we're
What
gonna.
is her sonic screwdriver?
So we're
going to
gonna
look like?
we're gonna touch on that video. There's another
Stuff.
video coming out for that, so we're gonna touch on that.
Yeah, only thousands.
So thank you for this journey for the 15th Doctor. Thank you, Shooty Gatler.
And Shooty has been a fantastic Doctor.
Yeah,
Probably one of the most best
Doctors.
Doctors out there.
Yeah, and it's really good to see Russell back as the showrunner. Thank you, Russell, for coming back. It's been a really good journey to see how he writes his first Doctor, and now he's going to write another Doctor. So thank you, Russell T
Of course.
Davies.
Russell's had a big span because his first ever written episode was for Eccleston.
Yeah,
No,
and
no,
then he
Then he did all of Tennant's, all of
and he-
Smith's, all of Capaldi's.
no, he written from 2005 to 2010. And then when he was coming back, I went straight to CX to buy the current series. And my God, I was so pleased. And then when we got the first episode of the 60th, we're in for a better series. Bring it on. So that ends that video.
Ends this video. So we've got a lot of questions about how Billy's gonna be when it comes to her Doctor stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to her series, we've got a question of when will she appear as the new Doctor?
Yeah.
Will it be in a special episode or just be in the main series itself? Who knows? I'll just have to wait and find out. But before we do, let's just reveal the fact that we've had a little teaser to the spin-off series.
There's Land and the Sea, which is with a classic monster from 1972, The Return of the Sea Devils.
for the third time.
So one of the
they
guys
were in
is
the classics.
So one of the guys is speaking to the Sea Devils. So that guy, it's a bit of a leaky rumor, but I'm gonna mention it now. That guy who was speaking to the Sea Devil is apparently the Master. So that's what they've said, but but
We'll just have to wait and see.
see. So we don't know when
I'm not
that's.
sure when that's coming out. Possibly, I feel like what they're going to do is whilst they're filming Billy Piper's first series as the Doctor,
Yeah,
we'll be seeing probably 2026 will be the year for the spin-off,
yeah,
and then the new series for 7.
yeah,
I feel that's how they're going to run it.
yeah. So,
It's been a crazy one. Hell of a journey. Thank you so much for watching and staying tuned for this channel for all the updates in Doctor Who. We can't wait to find out what happens next.
Yeah.
But until then, we'll see you all next time. Bye!
See you all soon, you brilliant Doctor Who fans.
Yes.
Thanks.